organizational information requirements. So it's a template and it's based in Excel. We made it as a spreadsheet because we found that a spreadsheet was probably the most suitable method of doing this for a project over 100 million. Using a sheet or document of just A4 pages probably wasn't as scalable that you'll need for that. So within the instruction page of this, we've looked at it and we've just have a standardized instruction through all our templates and to just cover what it is. Just to note on some of the things in the instruction is that we always put text that is slightly grayed out in italics, and they're meant to be guidance to what you want. And then also if it's red italics, it's meant to be some documents that you're meant to complete in, that's meant to be deleted out and put in with project specific information. So then we have a quick link into the actual next sections of it. So then just to go into the organizational information requirements. So what we've done is we've tried to add the guidance into the document itself. So that's not really needed for the document when you use it as a template, but it's just what we wanted to do is put as much guidance on the actual templates as well, so it could be understood as they're read. So basically we have a tracking number, a person, an activity, what you need to do, and the purpose. So that and that's, we really went and we stripped back what an organizational information requirements, and we didn't go and we didn't put any uniclass codes in it or anything like that. So we did look at other examples there, but we decided that the best thing was to make this as user friendly as possible and start a conversation. And that's what it was for the organization to think, what information will they need when they actually when they get the project handed over? And it might not just be to do with running the asset. And that's something that they really need to think about, that it's not about just running the asset. There might be other information that the organization needs for running the organization itself. And I suppose that's why I've kind of looked at this one, because with public works in schools, that an organizational information requirement could be for a school principal to know how much children can be taught in the classroom, what's the capacity size of the classroom, so they can plan enrollments. So that's really kind of what we want you to think about, is think about what information would be useful to the organization or to the people within the organization when that asset has been handed over. And instead of them having to go back in and say, oh, how are we going to do this? Are we going to have to resurvey the school, as in walk around the classrooms and count it? Or is it something that they're going to have to go and start digging out plans and trying to work it out? Just write it as an information requirement and get it as an information requirement. There can also be things that you need to look at that for your safety of it and maintaining the asset to some of the regulations that are there. So all these are valid organizational information requirements. Then to move on, I'm going to go back on the asset information requirements, but I just wanted to go through the project and the rest of the template for us to go back through it. So as we said, within the project information requirements, that a lot of these for government projects are already specified through the spending code and through the capital works management framework. So it asks for information requirements to be put out, to be got from the project, and it does go into some of the more specifications of what it is. So this was the idea of this, to try and keep it as simple as what the stage that was required, the milestone within that stage, who wants the information, the requirement owner, who needs that information, the information requirements, high level, and then any supporting information to let people to go back in to see how will they distill that out when they start going into writing the asset information requirements, and then again still it out further to write the exchange information requirements. So it's quite important that we do this. And then in a way, really, the three key documents in our organizational information requirements, and why we didn't do an our organizational information management plan. And what we've done is we've created information management plans. And what we've tried to do was we've tried to parcel some documents together to make it simpler for people to do that, to have to have one document that contains the information they need. So with the organizational information management plan, it has the three key documents: organizational information requirements, project information requirement, and asset information requirement. But we've added extra stuff here that actually helped the organization, that may be of use or will be of use to them, but for them to consider when they're doing this. And one of them was a checklist. And we made a checklist of what the responsibilities of the organization within the appointing party, within the standards. So we went down and we looked at the standards, what standard it is, and what the activity is, and if it's the responsibility of the appointing party or the organization, and has that been done. And what we were looking at, and this is common throughout our documents, that we look for, that we understand that you're going to fit very little information in a cell of an Excel document. But really what way we wanted to look at this was that you would actually link it to another document. So you'd use a URL code to link to another document that you might have more information. So it wasn't the case that we wanted you to put all your information in just that cell. It could be linked to a document that you have more space to expand what you want. So that work goes down through all the standards of who's required. So it gives the client the understanding of it, or the appointing party of it. This is a similar document, but what it's about is it's about having the project. And usually within ISO 19650 Part 1, it's not an activity that you do. The activities that are done are in Part 2 and Part 3. So it's an overall what you plan to do yourselves and what you plan to get other people to do. So you make that overarching plan of what you're going to be responsible and accountable for, and what you're going to be consulted and informed on. So it's about making that overall decision. And then back onto, we've added two examples, and it comes from the standard. So these are examples of OIRs, and then there's examples of an AIR could be. So I suppose that just gives you a brief idea of what examples could be there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now go backwards into the asset information requirements. And I think firstly what I wanted to talk about was level of information need. And I would say this is probably a newish concept for most people, and it hasn't been a concept that has had huge traction. But I believe it is something that we need to be getting comfortable with, and we need to understand it, and we need to be thinking about this, and we need to think about LOD 1 and LOD 5 or 3 or whatnot. We need to forget about them terms. They're too vague and they're not appropriate for getting the accurate information you need. And we need to start looking at level of information needed, and start looking at the standard that this is done in. And there is an ISO standard already out there for a level of information need. And that's where this template has came from. It's looked at all the actors for a level of information need as they need to be. It's talking about the purpose of the information, the milestone, the actor, the object, and then it talks about geometrical information, so the detail, the geometry, the location, the appearance, if there's any parametrical behavior, and also it talks about alphanumerical information. Is there an ID information? Is there an information container? And then documents. So there's quite a large amount of information there, and probably a lot more detail than you're used to going into. But it's something that we plan as Build Digital to actually this year to produce some more guidance around. But it is something that we need to be, I suppose, aware of. And I suppose really what we want to do is, we don't want to go down a cul-de-sac of how we're working. So that was the idea of that we needed to be aware of the level of information need, and actually what it looks like and how much more detailed it is. And that's why we went back and we went into the asset information requirement, and we started looking back on that. So it's probably different than how people would think an asset information requirement would look. And we went down into organizing it the same as level of information needed. Geometrical information, alphanumerical information, and documentation. That's what we wanted to have with it. And what we wanted to have was an asset breakdown structure and an asset data dictionary on that, which are kind of new terms and new probably new ways of working for some, but not all. And then we started to look at to kind of do some of the heavy lifting on this and to also use Uniclass, which Uniclass is also mandated within the standard, and have it without throughout the project, was that what you'd use is Uniclass identifiers, and maybe that you mightn't have to go down to the detail of exactly every component, but you might maybe go to some of the Uniclass elements. So within the example that I have here, that you might go for excuse me, that you might go for the structural and general or the support. You might go for beams, but you mightn't go for all the individual types of beams. So you use that as a way, as a method to describe stuff. So if, for an example, if you had life safety equipment, you need a lot of information on them because you need to manage them. But other stuff like skirting boards, you might not need information on them. So you looked at how do you categorize them, and the way to categorize them would be in the Uniclass. So I suppose that's kind of a quick go through of how the organizational information management management plan works. And what we'll do is we'll do the next information management plan in the next section, in the next session. So that kind of finished me off.